There's a gate in Jerusalem that's been sealed shut for nearly 500 years. Most tourists walk right past it without even noticing. But this isn't just any gate. According to ancient prophecy, this is the gate the Messiah is supposed to enter through when he returns. It's called the Eastern Gate, and recently, something strange is happening. Dust is falling. Stones are shifting. People are starting to whisper. Is this just an old building falling apart, or is something bigger going on? Stick with me, because this gets absolutely wild. Back in the early 1500s, the Ottoman Empire controlled Jerusalem. Sultan Suleiman, called the Magnificent, was rebuilding the city's walls. But then he did something strange. He ordered the Eastern Gate to be completely sealed up. Bricked shut. Permanently closed. Here's the kicker. There's no official record explaining why. But look at the timing. By the 1500s, people in Jerusalem were openly talking about prophecy. They believed the Messiah would come from the east and enter through this exact gate. Before we continue, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and like this video if you want to spread God's truth. Let's continue. So Suleiman sealed it. But he didn't stop there. He placed a Muslim cemetery right in front of it. This wasn't random. In Jewish law, priests can't walk through cemeteries without becoming ritually unclean. If the Messiah was expected to be from the priestly line, this created a spiritual blockade. A gate meant for God's anointed, deliberately shut. A wall built against a promise. But here's what history teaches us. Every time people try to block God's plans, Pharaoh, Babylon, Rome, it never works. Prophecy moves forward with quiet, unstoppable certainty. The prophet Ezekiel, exiled in Babylon, had a vision of God's glory entering the temple from the east through what he called the East Gate. That's in Ezekiel 43. But earlier in chapter 10, he saw something heartbreaking, God's glory departing, also heading east. Presence, then absence. Connection, then exile. Fast forward to Jesus. It's Passover, and he's riding a donkey into Jerusalem, fulfilling the prophecy in Zechariah 9 verse 9 about the king coming humbly. The route he takes? From the Mount of Olives, across the valley, straight through the Eastern Gate. The Messiah entering his city through the prophesied entrance. But here's where it gets really interesting. After his resurrection, Jesus ascended from the Mount of Olives. And Zechariah 14 says when he returns, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, facing east, toward Jerusalem. The pattern continues. The gate watches. The prophecy waits. Today, the Eastern Gate is still sealed. But Jerusalem is anything but quiet. The city buzzes with life. The Western Wall, the Dome of the Rock, markets overflowing with people. But walk to the Eastern Wall and stand before that sealed gate, and something feels different. And recently, people have been noticing things. Not wild conspiracy theories, but quiet reports from credible sources. Israeli tour guides mention dust falling through cracks that weren't there before. Engineers have noticed stone shifts. Some people claim they've heard faint sounds from inside, like groaning, like pressure building. Officials say it's just normal aging of an old structure. Stone erodes. Foundations settle. That happens, right? But to those who understand prophecy, it feels like a whisper. A stirring. Something waking up after centuries of sleep. In Matthew 24, Jesus talked about signs before his return, wars, earthquakes, voices crying out. Then he said, "Watch, because you won't know the exact hour." Here's the thing. The Bible tells us in Hebrews 11 verse 3 that what we see wasn't made from things we can see. The physical world came from something invisible, something beyond our perception. So when we look at the Eastern Gate, we're not just seeing old stones. We're looking at a threshold between the natural and the divine. Here's what you need to understand. God rarely works with fireworks and explosions. He moves in ways that seem small but are massive in eternity. Elijah heard God in a whisper, not in thunder. Jesus was born in a stable, not a palace. He entered Jerusalem on a donkey, not a war chariot. This is the pattern. God's kingdom starts small and quiet, like a seed, then grows into something enormous. So when we hear about strange things at the Eastern Gate, dust falling, stones shifting, we shouldn't brush it off. We should ask, is this exactly the kind of subtle sign God would give? Not a spectacle, but a breath in the wall. A trembling in ancient stone. Look directly across from the Eastern Gate and you'll see the Mount of Olives rising on the horizon. This isn't random geography, it's prophetic precision. Ezekiel saw God's glory depart to the Mount of Olives, then return from the east through the same gate. Jesus followed this exact pattern, crossing from the Mount of Olives through the Eastern Gate on Palm Sunday. After his resurrection, he ascended from that same mountain. And Acts 1 tells us angels said, "This same Jesus will come back the exact same way you saw him leave." Zechariah says clearly, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. It's a straight line drawn by heaven itself, from the mountain, across the valley, through the gate. Jerusalem isn't just an ancient city, it's the heartbeat of prophecy. Mentioned over 800 times in the Bible, from Abraham to Revelation. Psalm 122 commands us, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Why? Because it's spiritual ground zero. Where Solomon built the temple. Where prophets cried out. Where Jesus walked and wept. In Luke 19 verse 42, Jesus looked at Jerusalem with sorrow and said, "If you had only known what would bring you peace, but now it's hidden from your eyes." That warning echoes today. The world races ahead in confusion, but Jerusalem remains steady, central, sacred. If this city was at the center of Christ's first coming, might it also be central to his return? In Matthew 24, Jesus told a parable about a fig tree, and scholars agree it represents Israel. He said, "When its branches become tender and put out leaves, you know summer is near. When you see all these things, know that it is near, right at the door." Pause on that phrase, at the door. Could that door be the actual Eastern Gate? In 1948, Israel became a nation again after 2,000 years. Many saw this as the fig tree's first leaf. Since then, signs have multiplied: earthquakes, wars, spiritual awakening, global unrest. But the quietest, most chilling sign? A gate sealed for 500 years may be starting to stir. If Jesus said, "It is near, even at the door," what if he meant exactly that? Picture it, a gate of ancient stone, sealed for nearly 5 centuries, untouched by time but not forgotten by destiny. Now whispers arise. Dust falling. Vibrations. Stones shifted. What if this isn't decay, but design? When this gate opens, it might not be with fanfare or lightning, but spiritually, it will shake the heavens. This isn't just a gate. It's a declaration waiting to happen. And when it opens, it won't just reveal a passage, it will announce a king. 4 centuries, prophecy has waited. This gate may be the final threshold where God's timing and human history collide. The signs are subtle, but they're stacking. The world sleeps, but the gate stirs. Heaven is watching. Are you watching? If this stirred something in you, don't scroll past. Stay awake. Stay watchful. The King is drawing near. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Smash the like button if this resonated with you. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Because this isn't ancient history. This might be prophetic present tense, happening right now. And this story? It's not over. It might just be beginning.